Imagine walking into a showroom with $100,000 in cash. Not a check, not a wire transfer. Cash, stacked, counted, representing years of work and compounding returns. You're not there for a supercar or a yacht. You're there for a piece of steel and glass, 39 millimeters wide, that fits on your wrist. And despite the money in your hand, despite standing in a store built for the express purpose of selling you something, the salesperson looks you in the eye and says, "I'm sorry, we have nothing available for you today." $100,000. Rejected. Rolex is the only company on earth that has turned saying no into the most effective marketing strategy ever built. Most people assume this is a supply problem, a factory that just can't keep up. They're wrong. On every level. Rolex is not a watch company. What Rolex actually is, and has been since 1945, is a multi-billion-dollar marketing machine, hidden behind the legal shield of a private charitable foundation, engineered to control desire itself. In this case study, we decode the empire behind the crown, the foundation nobody talks about, the psychology behind the waitlist that turns billionaires into anxious applicants, and why, in 2026, a Rolex Daytona behaves more like a hard asset than half the stocks in the S&P 500. This isn't another surface-level luxury explainer. This is the strategy behind the crown, the economics, the psychology, and the structure broken down piece by piece. Welcome to Empire Blueprint. This is the $10 billion charity. By the end of this, you'll never look at a status symbol the same way again. To understand the empire, you have to understand something almost nobody outside Swiss corporate law fully grasps. Rolex has no owner, no shareholders demanding quarterly growth, no activist investor pressuring margins, no stock price for executives to protect. Rolex is owned entirely by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, a private charitable trust founder Hans Wilsdorf created in 1945. He had no heirs, no intention of selling to a conglomerate, and no interest in watching financial engineers dismantle what he built. They are a ghost in the financial system. As a Swiss foundation, Rolex isn't required to disclose revenue, margins, or executive pay to any public regulator. While LVMH answers to thousands of shareholders, Rolex answers to a legacy. Independent analysts estimate revenue around 10 billion Swiss francs annually, more than the entire Swatch Group combined. But those are estimates. Rolex has never confirmed them, and under this structure it never has to. This is the genius most business case studies miss. When a company doesn't need to chase a stock price, it can afford to be patient, to underproduce in a world that rewards overproduction. It can afford to wait. The foundation reinvests billions back into R&D, distribution, and mythology building, without corporate tax friction, without dividend obligations. In an industry where brand equity is everything, that compounding advantage is chess against competitors playing checkers. But don't let the word charity soften what this actually is. Its founding mandate is the perpetual dominance of the Rolex brand. It's a charity whose primary beneficiary is itself, what wealth researchers call a sovereign financial state, a self-perpetuating capital organism built to protect a crown. This is the part most rise of the brand documentaries skip entirely, because it isn't a story about design or heritage, it's the economics underneath it. Compare it to LVMH, a genuine empire in its own right, but one built on public capital and shareholder pressure. Bernard Arnault has to answer to markets every 90 days. The Hans Wilsdorf Foundation answers to nobody, but its own founding mandate. That single structural difference explains almost everything else in this case study. It's why Rolex can underproduce on purpose. It's why it can walk away from short-term revenue that any public company would be legally pressured to chase. And it's why, 8 decades later, the strategy behind the crown still hasn't been successfully copied by a single competitor. Not Patek, not Audemars Piguet, not anyone. Rolex has never actually sold time. A $12 Casio is objectively more accurate than any mechanical Rolex ever built. That's not opinion, it's physics. And yet, a Casio sits in a gas station display case, and a Rolex sits behind bulletproof glass with a six-figure price and a 2-year wait. Why? Because people don't buy what a product does. They buy what it means. When Hillary reached the summit of Everest in 1953, a Rolex Oyster Perpetual was on his wrist. That single photograph said more than any ad copy ever could. When Mercedes Gleitze swam the English Channel in water cold enough to stop most hearts, the Rolex on her wrist kept perfect time, and Rolex ran full-page ads. Not to prove it was waterproof, to prove something bigger, that the kind of person who achieves the extraordinary wears Rolex. Branding researchers call this achievement anchoring, tying a product to peak human moments so consistently that the association becomes automatic, unconscious, cultural. The strategy evolved from utility to identity, from "this watch survives anything" to "this watch tells the world who you are without a word." In a world of smart devices, a mechanical watch has zero functional purpose. But a status symbol was never about function. It's about communication. Rolex became a silent grammar of belonging. You don't explain it to someone who understands it. You can't explain it to someone who doesn't. You're not buying gears and springs. You're buying a narrative, membership in a club with no application form. The only qualification is the crown on your wrist. They didn't sell you a watch. They sold you a version of yourself you already wanted to believe was true. This is the untold story behind almost every luxury category that has survived a century of disruption. The product becomes almost irrelevant, and the meaning becomes the entire business. It's the same playbook behind why a $100 bottle of wine can taste identical to a $10 one in a blind test, and why the psychology of the label matters more than the psychology of the palate. Breaking down the numbers on this is almost uncomfortable. Rolex spends a fraction of its revenue on traditional advertising compared to most luxury conglomerates. It doesn't need to buy attention. Achievement anchoring did that work for free, one summit and one ocean crossing at a time, for over 70 years. Now, the most studied, most imitated part of the empire's blueprint, the waitlist. Rolex produces roughly 1 million watches a year. That's not small. Patek Philippe makes about 70,000. Audemars Piguet, about 50,000. Rolex outproduces its most prestigious rivals, 20 to 1. And yet walk into any dealer on Fifth Avenue, Bond Street, or in Dubai Mall, and ask for a Daytona or a Submariner, the answer is almost always the same. We have nothing available. 1 million watches produced. Empty shelves. This is artificial scarcity with no real precedent in consumer goods. By controlling exactly what each dealer receives, and when, Rolex has manufactured a global shortage of a product it makes in abundance. It restructures the entire relationship with the customer. To even be considered for a desirable reference, buyers are typically expected to build purchase history, spending on jewelry and accessories they didn't originally want, just to earn the right to be offered the watch they actually came for. Rolex turned buying into an audition. And when that call finally comes, the watch has arrived, you haven't just bought it. You've earned it. That sense of earned ownership builds a depth of loyalty no points program has ever matched. This is the core insight most businesses miss, because they lack the patience to execute it. Desire isn't created by availability. It's created by the perception of impossibility. If everyone could have one, no one would want one. Their power lives entirely in the shortage, a tool for telling time converted into a currency of desirability. This is how the strategy actually works underneath the surface. It isn't one lever, it's three pulled together. Production is deliberately capped below true demand. Distribution is centrally dictated, down to the individual boutique. And the customer relationship is restructured, so that patience itself becomes part of the price. Pull any one of those three levers out, and the entire system collapses back into an ordinary luxury market. Most brand strategists who study this case admit the same thing. This isn't a supply chain that needs fixing. It's a supply chain that's working exactly as designed, and has been deliberately for decades. A Rolex Daytona retails for roughly $14,500. On the secondary market, Chrono 24, Bob's Watches, Watchbox, that same watch trades for $28,000 to $40,000, depending on configuration and provenance. A premium of 100 to 175% over retail. You can buy a watch for $14,000 and if you can get one, sell it the same day for $35,000. In the framework of luxury asset analysis, that makes a Daytona one of the most efficient hard assets available to a high net worth buyer. More liquid than real estate, more stable in inflation than many fixed income instruments, and in recent years, appreciating faster than a large share of growth stocks. In 2026, the global secondary market for pre-owned Rolex watches exceeds $15 billion annually. A market Rolex doesn't operate and doesn't profit from directly, which makes it the single strongest proof that this isn't hype. It's structural. That number doesn't exist for products losing relevance. It exists for assets people want to hold regardless of whether the primary market will even sell to them. Rolex completed a transition almost no luxury brand pulls off, from product category leader to genuine asset class. A liquid, globally recognized store of value. They don't compete with the Apple Watch. Apple competes in consumer electronics, a category built on annual obsolescence. Rolex competes with fine art, rare wine, and classic cars. Assets that appreciate with time instead of depreciating against it. Is a Rolex actually a good investment, or is this a bubble waiting on a correction? Here's the honest, numbers-first answer. Unlike stocks or real estate, this market has no dividend, no rental yield, and no fundamentals-based valuation model. Pricing is driven almost entirely by scarcity and sentiment. That makes it a genuine hedge against certain kinds of volatility, but not a risk-free one. If Rolex ever meaningfully increased production, the secondary premium could compress fast. That's the trade-off embedded in the entire model. The same artificial scarcity that creates the asset class behavior is also the single point of failure that could unwind it. If the foundation ever chose growth over discipline. So, can a brand built on mechanical precision and century-old mythology survive an era of AI, digital assets, and a generation raised indifferent to traditional status signaling? The data already answers that, emphatically. The moat around this empire is, in the language of competitive strategy, essentially uncrossable. The foundation protects it from outside financial pressure. The scarcity engine protects its value from inflation. A century of achievement, Everest to the Mariana Trench to every boardroom on Earth, protects its prestige from trend cycles. Every element of this is a lesson for anyone building something meant to last. Lesson 1. The most powerful marketing isn't the marketing you run. It's the marketing your customers run for you when they can't access your product. The waitlist isn't a supply problem. It's the most effective advertising channel they have. Lesson 2. Structure protects vision. The foundation isn't just a legal entity. It's a commitment to long-term stewardship over short-term extraction. The structure you choose determines what pressure you'll face and what patience you can actually afford. Lesson 3. The most durable brands don't sell products. They sell an answer to the question every person, at every level of wealth, is quietly asking. Am I enough? Have I arrived? Does the world see what I've built? Rolex answers that question with a crown. They didn't sell you a watch. to show you the time. They sold you a watch to show the world your time had arrived. That's the genius. That's the empire. Most business empires eventually face a rise and fall story. A founder who overextends, a market that shifts, a competitor who out-innovates. Rolex is one of the rare case studies where, 8 decades in, that story simply hasn't happened yet. Not because they got lucky, because the structure was designed from day one to make the usual causes of collapse structurally impossible. If this gave you a new lens on scarcity and brand architecture, subscribe to Empire Blueprint. We decode empires so you can build your own. One question before you go: is Rolex the greatest marketing machine ever built, or is the secondary market a bubble waiting on a correction? Tell us below. Stay focused, stay ambitious, stay building. This was Empire Blueprint.